Laura, tell us about Frank Bramble and how he enters the picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's good you start at the top, Vonnie, at the board. Frank Bramble, of course, is a board member sitting there at the top of the House, and he is delivering this message, to the shareholders, to everybody in the bank, that the bank does not want to be taking these unfettered risks. And that message is really coming down from him, other board members, CEO Brian Moynihan, and filtering its way down into the investment bank, affecting the investment bankers who work there.
What exactly is going on? Because we heard yesterday from a prominent deal maker who said, look, banks will talk the talk, but of course they're excited about this new environment, the possibility of more leverage lending, for example.
Right, exactly. There are a lot of factors, in the economy and even in politics right now where you would see that bankers could do better. And that's sort of the problem, because Bank of America came off of a really hot year. Let's look at investment banking fees, M&A advisory, for example. It was a really banner year for them. But in this first quarter, when you would expect to have seen things improving, and even Brian Moynihan has forecast into the second quarter, things are not looking as good in the investment bank. That's not happening. You're not seeing those deals really come to fruition. So that's why we kind of stepped back and really looked at what was going on under the hood. And what we were finding is that this pullback in risk, this edict that is coming from the board and Brian, has been influencing what deals the bank has been taking. There's been bankers who've told us, look, there are things that we've sat out on that we would have maybe normally done otherwise. And a lot of this is coming after the bank did this really intense investigation into Steinhoff. There was a loan there that was given to a South African billionaire, the former chairman of Steinhoff International, the South African furniture maker. And that was something that caused the bank to lose $300 million on margin lending. So it's something that has really pulled back the appetite for the top of the house at the bank to have this risk going on.
Yeah, interesting, Laura. We just saw that news on Steinhoff getting approval for its restructuring of going forward and see whether it gets to edge towards a debt deal going forward. But, I mean, I want to hear about going forward for the bankers themselves, senior bankers leaving Bank of America. Is it at a particularly fast pace compared to usual?
Yeah, I mean, we've had some people argue that, this is not really a huge drop. But I think anytime that you see 14, 15 managing directors leave a bank, just in a few months, that's something that has cause for concern. And these weren't just, some of the bankers down the rungs. These were some leaders of different M&A groups. So, things like that are something that you really want to look into. And, going forward, maybe there are ways in which the bank can have a new strategy, double down. They want to double down on some kinds of clients that really bring in the fees for them. But this is something that you want to be concerned about when some of your senior bankers do leave the firm.
And when they're willing to talk to you. I mean, how hard was it to report on this story? Because you are going to some of these senior bankers. Is it the frustration that they have that's making them willing to speak out?
Yeah, I think you've got it there, Caroline. It's something that they're seeing that they don't want to be happening. These are people who really are able to craft deals, go ahead and give some lending relationships. So they don't really want to be losing those things. Of course, they make their money off of the deals that they're able to actually figure out and transact upon. So when you see those kinds of things, people do kind of give a holler at a shout, and therefore they're willing to talk about it.
It's almost sad in a way, because people who've been there for decades, Tom Montag, for example, had plans. They had big plans, and they were being reined in. Is that true, Laura?
Yeah, so Montag, as you mentioned, is head of the corporate investment bank and the trading side as well. And then Christian Meissner, too. They had these plans to really ramp up in certain areas, like margin lending was one of them, but also to really gain much bigger market share in M&A deal advisory. And that's just not happening as much. A lot of the bankers were really, excited to be part of that goal structure, but after a time, that's just not really happening anymore. And so I think for people who, grew up with the franchise or joined it at some point back in the past, they're just disappointed at this point with those goals going away.